The CEO's hand trembled as she stared at the document. A janitor, a man who'd spent 10 years mopping her floors, emptying her trash bins. And yet, there it was, in black and white. His name listed among the founding members of her company. She thought her father had built Neutron Technologies from nothing, but seeing this poor janitor's name buried in confidential files made her question everything. Why had someone tried so hard to erase him? Why was he cleaning the floors of a company he helped create? Leona Stone was about to confront him with a question that would shatter everything she believed. And his answer? His answer would expose a secret that had been hiding in plain sight for a decade. Before we continue, let us know in the comment section where in the world you're tuning in from. We love seeing how far our stories reach. And if this story speaks to you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leona found him on the 3rd floor, near the engineering department. Dylan Carter was on his knees, scrubbing at a coffee stain on the carpet outside the conference room. His navy blue uniform was faded, worn at the elbows. She'd passed him countless times over the years, never really seeing him, just another maintenance worker keeping the building pristine. But now she couldn't stop seeing him. "Mr. Carter," he looked up, surprise flickering across his face. Employees didn't usually address him by name. Most didn't know it. "Miss Stone." He stood quickly, wiping his hands on his pants. "Is there a problem with the cleaning? I need to speak with you." "In my office." His jaw tightened slightly. "I'm scheduled to finish this floor, then I have to pick up my daughter from school at 4. This can't wait." Leona's voice was firm but not unkind. She held up the folder. "It's about your employment file." Something shifted in his expression. Not quite fear, but recognition. Like he'd been waiting for this moment for years. "Now, Mr. Carter." The elevator ride to the top floor was suffocating. Leona watched him in the reflective walls, this man who suddenly felt like a stranger with a dangerous secret. He kept his eyes down, hands clasped in front of him. Professional, resigned. When they entered her office, she gestured to the chair across from her desk. This time, she didn't give him a choice. Dylan sat, his weathered hands resting on his knees. Up close, Leona could see the lines around his eyes, the grey threading through his dark hair. He looked older than 40, tired in a way that went deeper than long shifts. She placed the folder on the desk between them and opened it slowly, watching his reaction. His face remained carefully neutral, but his fingers curled slightly, tensing. "I was preparing for an investor presentation," Leona began. "Wanted to refresh myself on our company's origin story, my father's legacy." She pulled out a document, yellowed with age. "I found this in the archived files. Electra Tech, a startup acquired by my father 10 years ago." Dylan said nothing. The acquisition included all patents, technology, and intellectual property. It became the foundation for everything Neutron Technologies built. She looked up at him. What it didn't include was credit to the people who created it. "Your father paid for what he acquired," Dylan said quietly. "That's how business works." "Is it?" Leona pulled out another document. "Dylan Carter, co-founder and lead engineer of Electrotech, holder of 40% equity in the company." She paused. "Sold for $200,000. A muscle jumped in Dylan's jaw. "Do you know what 40% of Neutron Technologies is worth today, Mr. Carter? $3.2 billion. She let that number hang in the air. "You sold $3 billion for $200,000. I sold it for survival." His voice came out harder than before. "My wife had just died. I had a 6-month-old baby who wouldn't stop crying. I couldn't think straight, couldn't sleep. Your father and his partners made me an offer. I signed. You barely read it, did you?" Dylan's silence was answer enough. Leona leaned back in her chair, studying him. "What I don't understand is why you're here. Why would you come work as a janitor at the company you helped build?" "I needed a job with health insurance and stable hours. Neutron was hiring. You have 2 degrees from MIT. You could have worked anywhere. Anywhere would have required 60-hour weeks and constant travel. Maya needed a parent, not a paycheck." His eyes met hers, steady and unflinching. "I made my choice. Did you? Or did desperate circumstances make it for you?" Leona stood, moving to the window. The San Francisco skyline stretched before them, glittering with success. "I've spent 5 years running this company, believing I understood its foundation. My father built this. That's what everyone told me. But he didn't, did he? He built Neutron Technologies. Electrotech died the day we signed those papers. Don't. Leona turned sharply. Don't minimize what happened. You created the neural interface technology that made us billions. You designed the algorithms that revolutionized how computers process human input. That was you. Dylan's expression cracked slightly. That was me and my wife. Sophia was the visionary. I just made her dreams work. The way he said his wife's name, soft and broken even after 10 years, made Leona's chest tighten. She'd built her life on ambition, on results, on the relentless pursuit of success. She'd never considered what that success might cost someone else. Tell me what really happened, she said quietly. Not the sanitized version in the acquisition papers. The truth. Dylan checked his watch. 3:45. He pulled out his phone and sent a quick text. When he looked back up at Leona, something had changed in his eyes. A wall coming down, brick by brick. Electrotech started in our garage, he began. Sophia and I were fresh out of MIT, full of ideas and no money. She'd been researching neural interfaces for her thesis, ways to make technology respond to human thought patterns more intuitively. Everyone said it was impossible, too far ahead of its time. But she proved them wrong. We proved them wrong. A small, sad smile crossed his face. I'd work all day at a programming job, come home and work all night on the prototype. Sophia would be there with our notes, sketching out new approaches, pushing me to think bigger. We lived on ramen and coffee for 2 years. Leona sat back down, drawn into the story despite herself. We finally got it working in March, 10 years ago. The first functional neural interface that could predict user needs before they consciously formed them. It was revolutionary. Dylan's voice carried a mix of pride and pain. We brought in 2 partners, guys I'd known from MIT, Marcus and Jason. They handled the business side while Sophia and I focused on development. Within 6 months we had venture capitalists circling. What happened? Sophia got pregnant. Dylan's hands clenched. We were terrified and thrilled and completely unprepared. But she wouldn't slow down, kept working 16-hour days, pushing the technology further. She wanted to prove that women could build empires and have families, that she didn't have to choose. The office felt very quiet. Maya was born in September, perfect and tiny and everything we'd dreamed of. His voice dropped. 3 months later, Sophia was driving home from a late meeting with investors. A truck ran a red light. Leona found herself holding her breath. She died instantly. They told me that like it was supposed to be comforting. Like instant meant she didn't suffer. Dylan looked down at his hands. I suffered enough for both of us. I'm sorry. Everyone was sorry. Marcus and Jason were sorry. The investors were sorry. But sorry doesn't raise a baby. Sorry doesn't pay hospital bills or buy formula or explain to a 6-month-old why her mother isn't coming home. His voice hardened. Sorry doesn't stop your business partners from calling 2 weeks after the funeral, asking when you'll be back in the office. Leona felt something cold settle in her stomach. I told them I needed time. They said the company couldn't wait. We had investors demanding results, competitors catching up. I tried to work from home, but Maya would cry, and I'd lose focus. I'd be in the middle of coding, and suddenly I'd remember Sophia sitting next to me, and I couldn't breathe. They forced you out. They made me an offer. $200,000 for my 40%. They said it was generous, considering I was no longer contributing, that I was holding the company back. Dylan's laugh was bitter. I signed the papers in our living room while Maya slept in my arms. I didn't even read them. I just wanted it over. Wanted to stop pretending I could be both parents and run a company. And then you came here. Not right away. I tried to stay away, tried to move on. But being away from it felt like losing Sophia twice. So I applied for a maintenance position. Night shift at first, so I could be with Maya during the day. When she started school, I moved to days. He met Leona's eyes. I never wanted recognition or money. I just wanted to be near the last thing Sophia and I built together. Leona felt the weight of his words settle over her. This man had created the foundation of her empire and asked for nothing in return. Had suffered in silence while others took credit, while her father became a legend. Did my father know? She asked quietly. Did he know what your partners did to you? Dylan hesitated. Your father knew I was grieving. He knew the circumstances, whether he knew the full extent. He shrugged. Does it matter now? Yes, Leona said fiercely. It matters. She stood and walked to the glass wall overlooking the building's main atrium. Below, employees moved through the space, working on technology Dylan had invented, building on foundations he'd laid, all of them believing the story she'd believed, that this company had sprung from one man's genius. "I can't let this stand," she said. "You deserve recognition, compensation. Your daughter deserves to know her father built something extraordinary. Maya knows everything that matters." Dylan's voice was gentle but firm. "She knows her mother was brilliant. She knows I loved her enough to walk away. That's the legacy I want her to have." "And what about what you want?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. He was quiet for a long moment. "I want to pick up my daughter from school on time. I want to help her with homework and make dinner and tuck her in at night. I want to be there." His eyes met hers with an intensity that made Leona's breath catch. "I don't need the world to know my name. I just need Maya to know her father kept his promises." Leona had built her life on ambition, on the belief that success meant leaving a mark, being remembered, changing the world. But looking at Dylan Carter, this man who'd chosen his daughter over glory, she wondered if she'd been measuring success all wrong. "What if I told you that you could have both?" she asked. "What if there was a way to honor what you and Sophia created without disrupting your life with Maya?" Dylan stood slowly. "Miss Stone, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I signed those papers. I made my choice. Dredging up the past won't change anything. It will change everything." Leona's voice was steel wrapped in silk. "My company was built on your work, your sacrifice, your grief. I won't let that continue to be invisible. And if I don't want to be visible, then you should have stayed invisible." She smiled slightly. "But you didn't. You stayed here, working in the shadows of what you created. Part of you wanted this to be found." Dylan was quiet, and Leona knew she'd struck something true. "Go pick up your daughter," she said finally. "But this conversation isn't over. I'm going to do some digging, talk to some people, and then we're going to discuss how to make this right. There is no making it right. Maybe not, but we're going to try anyway." She walked him to the door. "Dylan, thank you for telling me the truth." He nodded and left, and Leona stood alone in her office, holding the file that had changed everything. Outside her window, the sun was beginning to set over the San Francisco Bay, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. She had built her empire on her father's legacy. But that legacy, she now understood, had been built on another man's loss, and Leona Stone had never walked away from a problem in her life. She picked up her phone and dialed her legal team. "I need you to pull every document related to the Electrotech acquisition. Everything. I don't care if it's archived or sealed. I want it on my desk by tomorrow morning." As she hung up, Leona looked at the framed photo on her desk. Her father, smiling confidently at the camera on the day Neutron Technologies went public. She'd always seen strength in that smile, confidence, success. Now she saw something else, and she couldn't unsee it. The next morning, 3 boxes of legal documents waited on Leona's desk. She'd requested every file related to the Electrotech acquisition, and what she found made her sick. Page 47 of the buyout agreement contained a confidentiality clause. Dylan had been legally forbidden from ever discussing his role in creating the technology. And buried in the fine print was something even worse, a 72-hour decision window. They'd given a grieving widower 3 days to sign away his life's work. Her father's signature sat at the bottom of every page. Leona grabbed her phone and called her assistant. "Find Dylan Carter. Tell him I need to see him. Now." She found him 30 minutes later in the building's mechanical room, his hands black with grease from repairing a heating unit. He looked up when she entered, and something in her expression made him set down his wrench. "You read the files. They gave you 72 hours. Leona's voice shook. 3 days to make a decision that would affect the rest of your life. 3 days while you were barely able to function. Dylan wiped his hands on a rag, his movements slow and deliberate. "I signed it. You signed it under duress. They silenced you legally before erasing you completely." She stepped closer. "Dylan, this wasn't just business. This was exploitation. Your father saw an opportunity and took it. That's what successful people do." His voice held no bitterness, only acceptance, and that made it worse. "How can you defend him?" "I'm not defending him. I'm just done being angry about it." Dylan met her eyes. I've had 10 years to make peace with what happened. Maybe it's time you figured out what you're really angry about. The words hit like a slap. What's that supposed to mean? It means your anger isn't about me. It's about the pedestal you put your father on. His voice softened. Finding out he was human is hard. But taking down his legacy won't change what happened to me. Leona opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. He was right. This churning rage in her chest wasn't about justice. It was about her own shattered illusions. So, what do I do? The question came out smaller than she intended. You accept that life is complicated. People are complicated. Dylan picked up his wrench again. And you stop trying to fix something that can't be fixed. There has to be something. There isn't. He turned back to the heating unit. I appreciate your guilt, Miss Stone, but I don't need you to save me. I'm not drowning anymore. Leona stood there, watching him work, feeling helpless in a way she hadn't felt since her father died. She'd built her entire identity on being the woman who solved problems, who made things right. But this was a wound 10 years old, and all her money and power couldn't heal it. What if it's not about fixing the past, she said quietly. What if it's about honoring it? Dylan paused, his back still to her. Your wife was brilliant. You both created something revolutionary. That deserves to be remembered, even if you don't want recognition. Leona took a breath. Let me find a way to honor Sophia's legacy. Not for you, for Maya. That made him turn around. Don't bring my daughter into this. She's already in this. She's living in the shadow of something she doesn't even know exists. Leona's voice grew urgent. One day, Maya's going to ask questions. About her mother, about why you work where you work. What are you going to tell her? Dylan's jaw tightened. I'll tell her the truth. That her parents built something beautiful, and when her mother died, I chose to be her father instead of chasing glory. And when she finds out that something beautiful made billions for other people, when she realizes you're cleaning floors in a building that should have your name on it, Leona stepped closer. She won't be proud, Dylan. She'll be furious on your behalf. His composure cracked. You don't know that. I do. Because I'm furious on your behalf, and I barely know you. Her voice dropped. Let me do something. A scholarship in Sophia's name. A recognition of the early innovators who built this company. Something that tells the truth without putting you in the spotlight. Dylan was quiet for a long moment, his hands gripping the wrench so tight his knuckles went white. One condition, he said finally. You meet Maya first. You look her in the eye and tell me you're doing this for the right reasons. Not for your conscience, not for your father's legacy. For her. Done. Friday night, 6 o'clock. I'll text you the address. He turned back to his work, his shoulders tense. And Miss Stone? If I think for 1 second that this is going to disrupt her life, it stops. Immediately. I understand. As Leona left the mechanical room, her phone buzzed with a text from her CFO. Board wants emergency meeting about Q4 projections. When are you available? She typed back, next week. I have something more important to handle first. For the first time in 5 years, Leona Stone was putting something ahead of business, and it terrified her. That afternoon, she called her executive team into her office. Just 3 people, her CFO Richard, her CTO David, and her general counsel Jennifer. People she trusted. I need your help with something sensitive, she began. And I need you to keep it confidential. She told them everything. About Dylan, about Electrotech, about the buried truth. When she finished, the room was silent. Jesus, David breathed. He's been here the whole time. 10 years. Leona leaned forward. I want to honor his contribution without destroying his privacy. I need ideas. Jennifer was the first to speak. A scholarship fund, in his wife's name, for women in technology. It acknowledges their work without putting Carter in the spotlight. We could commission art for the lobby, Richard added slowly. Something that honors the anonymous innovators who built this company. It's subtle but meaningful, David nodded. And maybe create a flexible advisory role in R&D. Let him use his expertise on his own terms, part-time, remote, whatever he needs. He won't take it, Leona said. He's made it clear he doesn't want anything from us. Then we make it about Maya. Jennifer's voice was gentle. Frame it as legacy building for his daughter. Set up a trust, establish the scholarship, create opportunities. things that will matter when she's older. Leona felt something shift in her chest. This could work. Not perfectly, but enough. Enough to tell the truth without destroying the peace Dylan had fought so hard to build. "Draft everything," she said. "I'll present it to him after I meet his daughter." As her team filed out, Richard lingered. "Leona, are you sure about this? Once you start acknowledging Carter's role, questions will be asked. About your father, about the acquisition, about how we built this company." "I know," she met his eyes. "But I can't unknow what I know, and I can't build a future on a lie." He nodded slowly. "Your father would be proud, or horrified." "Maybe both." "Both," Leona agreed. "Definitely both." That evening, her phone buzzed with a text from Dylan. "Maya wants to know why her dad's boss keeps visiting him at work. I told her you were interested in my maintenance suggestions. She didn't buy it. Friday, 6 p.m. Be prepared for interrogation." Leona smiled despite herself. She typed back, "I look forward to it." But as she sat alone in her office, watching the sun set over the bay, Leona felt the weight of what she was about to do. Meeting Maya wasn't just about honoring a promise to Dylan. It was about looking into the eyes of a 9-year-old girl and deciding whether the truth was worth the disruption it might cause. She thought about her own father, about the legacy he'd left her. She'd spent 5 years protecting it, polishing it, making it shine. But maybe the greatest thing she could do for his memory wasn't protecting the myth he'd created. Maybe it was having the courage to tell the truth, even if that truth was complicated, even if it hurt. Her phone lit up with another message, this time from an unknown number. "This is Maya. Dad says you're coming for dinner. Do you like tacos? Also, are you really his boss? Because he says you're very important, but you don't seem scary." Leona laughed, a real laugh that surprised her. She typed back, "I love tacos, and I'm only scary on Mondays." The response came immediately, "Good, because Dad makes the best tacos. See you Friday." As Leona gathered her things to leave, she paused at her father's portrait in the hallway. She'd walked past it 1,000 times, drawing strength from his confident smile. But tonight, she saw something different in his expression. Not confidence, certainty. The absolute certainty of someone who'd never questioned whether success justified the cost. "I'm not you, Dad," she whispered. "And maybe that's okay." She turned away from the portrait and walked toward the elevator. Friday would come soon enough. And with it, the conversation that would determine everything. Friday evening, Leona stood outside Dylan's apartment building, clutching flowers and questioning everything. Before she could retreat, the door buzzed open. Dylan appeared in jeans and a faded MIT sweatshirt, looking younger, more like the man who'd once built the future in his garage. "She's been watching the window for an hour. Fair warning, she has questions." The apartment was small but warm, filled with Maya's artwork and photos of a woman with kind eyes and Dylan's smile. "Sophia, you came." Maya burst from the kitchen, all energy and bright eyes in a dinosaur t-shirt. She studied Leona with intense focus. "Dad says you're his boss. But bosses don't visit people's houses." Leona crouched to her level. "You're right, but I wanted to meet you because your dad is special." "I know that, but why do you?" Maya tilted her head. "He just cleans floors." The question hung heavy. Dylan tensed, waiting. "Because your dad built something incredible a long time ago," Leona said carefully. "Something that changed the world, and I wanted to thank him." Maya's eyes went wide. "Like a superhero?" "Better, like a genius." Leona glanced at Dylan. "Your dad created technology that helps computers understand people. It's in phones all over the world." "Really?" Maya turned to her father. "Is that true?" Dylan was silent, then nodded. "Your mum and I built it together." "Mum?" Maya's voice went soft. "My mum did that?" "Your mum was the brilliant one. I just made her ideas work." His voice cracked. "She wanted to change the world, and she did." "Then why do you clean floors?" The simple question cut through every rationalization Dylan had built over 10 years. "Because when your mum died, I had to choose between chasing her dream or being your dad." His voice broke. "And you were more important." "You're still more important." Maya wrapped her arms around his waist. "I'm glad you chose me." Leona felt tears burning. This was what she'd been trying to understand. Love makes people choose impossible things. "Okay, No more sad stuff. Maya wiped her eyes quickly. I made tacos and they're getting cold. Dinner was chaotic and warm. Maya asked 100 questions about running a company, about being scared, making big decisions. Every day, Leona admitted. But I do it anyway. That's what Dad says. Being brave means doing it even when you're scared. Maya studied her. Is that why you came? Because you were scared, but did it anyway? Yes, Leona said. Exactly that. After Maya went to bed, Dylan and Leona sat with coffee between them. Thank you, Dylan said. You could have told her everything. The money, the betrayal. That's your story to tell. Leona pulled out a folder. But she should know the truth about what you built. My team put together proposals. Dylan's expression shuttered. Leona, just listen. She opened it. First, a scholarship fund, in Sophia's name, for women in technology. It wouldn't mention you, just honor her. Dylan's hands tightened on his cup, his jaw working. Second, art, for the lobby honoring unnamed innovators. No spotlight, just acknowledgement. She paused, watching his reaction. And third, a flexible advisory role. You'd work on your terms, your schedule. It's about giving you choice, something you didn't have 10 years ago. Dylan stared at the papers, his breathing shallow. When he finally looked up, his eyes were wet, but there was something else there too, something Leona couldn't quite read. I need to tell you something, he said quietly. Something I should have told you from the beginning. Leona's heart started pounding. What is it? Dylan set down his coffee cup, his hands trembling slightly. The confidentiality agreement I signed? It wasn't just about keeping quiet. There was another clause, one I've been living with for 10 years. Dylan, what are you talking about? He stood abruptly, walking to the window. Your father didn't just buy my shares. He bought my silence about something else, something that could destroy neutron technologies if it ever came out. The air left Leona's lungs. What? The neural interface technology? The algorithm that made billions? Dylan turned to face her, his expression tortured. It wasn't just ours. There was a third partner, someone your father erased even more completely than he erased me. Who? Before Dylan could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his face went white. What? What is it? Dylan looked up at her, fear written across his features. It's a message from Marcus Chen, one of my old partners. His voice was barely a whisper. He knows. You've been digging into the past, and he's threatening to go public with everything unless... His phone rang, cutting him off. The name on the screen read, Marcus Chen. Dylan and Leona locked eyes, the weight of 10 years of buried secrets hanging between them. Everything was about to change. Everything was about to come out. And neither of them was prepared for what would happen next. Dylan's finger hovered over the answer button. Should I? He started. Answer it, Leona said, her voice steel. Put it on speaker. As Dylan pressed the button, Marcus Chen's voice filled the small apartment, cold and calculating. Hello, Dylan. I heard you've been having interesting conversations with Miss Stone. I think it's time we all had a chat about the real story of Electra Tech, don't you? The line went dead. Leona and Dylan stood frozen, the implications crashing over them like a wave. Whatever Dylan had been about to reveal, whatever secrets had been buried for a decade, Marcus Chen was about to drag them all into the light. And Leona had a sinking feeling that her father's legacy, and everything she'd built on top of it, was about to crumble. Did Dylan answer Marcus's call? What explosive secret has been hidden for 10 years? And who is the mysterious third partner that could bring down neutron technologies? Comment part 2 below if you want to know what happens next. And don't forget to like and subscribe to Soul Story because this story is far from over. The truth is about to get a whole lot more complicated.